Hey folks, it's Jeremy Kirkland. You're listening to Blammo. How we doing? Did we all do the thing last week? Did we all do the Thanksgiving thing? Just eating turkey and hanging out, having a good time? If you were in the U.S., you probably did. Actually, I know a lot of people who don't live in the U.S. and are still all into Thanksgiving. They're just like, let it rip. They're eating pies. They're eating turkey. They're doing the thing. And I'm happy for you. I'm happy for you all. We did it. Went out to Kansas City. It was a good time. Saw the fam. Spent some time there. Brought the kids, obviously. And yeah, man. Then we drove back. And we drove back in this crazy. It was like we were trying to figure out. Do we gotta stay an extra day because there's this crazy storm and the storm's gonna hit. It's going to hit our house and it's going to cause all this traffic and disruption. And there was just this underlying anxiety throughout the last day there of just, what about the storm? Is the storm going to cause, is it going to ruin everything? And then all the kids are anxious and I'm driving back home. And we do this thing now when I drive home that the kids are watching something on an iPad and I'm in there. And sometimes I just put my AirPods in just to block out some of the music from back there. Don't worry, I'm focusing on the road. That person who's about to at me, I'm paying attention. I'm a good driver, and I'm just like, I gotta think. I gotta think about my podcast intro. I gotta think about all the stuff I gotta do next week. I gotta think about Mr. Geoff Snack. I had to do some deep thinking, but I did, and we did it, and here we are. My guest this week is none other than Geoff Snack. By the way, this guy is the guy that, like, when someone is going to talk about me, this is kind of what I aspire for. I'm not going to lie. He's on this kind of level of existence of the whole if you know cloud. But he's a very humble guy. It was, our conversation was really enlightening. I'm excited for you to hear it. But like, he teaches illustration and doesn't know how to draw, but he knows what looks good. You know what I mean? Like he has this taste level and ability to curate that is the reason your favorite stores are so welcoming and inspiring. I mean that. Like you go to, we talk about it. You go to J. Crew, you go to Noah, and you're like, man, these are cool books. This is a cool little thing over here. Now, I'm not saying he's designing the stores, and he'll correct. He'd be the first to say that as well. But like, he makes it feel like this home. He's got this thing in him, you know what I mean? And he's the perfect mixture of humility and good taste and storytelling. It was a great pod. I really love this one. We discuss how to reconcile cool and work, which if you're in the industry, you know exactly what I mean. Everyone's obsession with Donald Judd. I mean, good Lord. It's a plywood chair, editing, and if you should write, and the books you own. It's all in there. I am so pleased. We're back. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm feeling good.
Yeah. Congrats.
Thanks. Yeah. How about
that
you?
Is, I'm good. I mean, we're approaching Halloween, and last night I'm trying to do family stuff. You know what I mean? Like I got two kids. I want to be the good dad and do the fun family things. And my kids really wanted to carve pumpkins. And my daughter is a great artist. I was trying to explain to her, like if you carve a pumpkin, a lot of times you want to remove the negative space, right?
Interesting.
And so I'm trying to explain to her how to carve, like what to pull out, right? If you want to make a cat, you want to actually cut out where the light's going to come out.
I understand.
Not the cat itself.
Yes.
And basically she put two and two together and realized it, and just the shit hit the fan where she was just like so upset and pissed off, and there's pumpkin guts everywhere, and this like beautiful, wonderful night, is now the goofy sort of memory of my kids losing their shit because, pumpkin carving isn't as ideal as they thought. Because I'm like, you can't be so detailed on this stuff. I was like, just make a big shape. She's like making little hair follicle lines and stuff or whatever on her witch. So yeah, that's how I'm doing. But I mean, to be honest, other than the world's slowly falling apart, it's I'm doing my best to tread water.
That's all you can do is just, carve pumpkins and tread water. With carving pumpkins, I always found that as a kid, I loved the idea of carving pumpkins, but I didn't like actually doing it. So I would like come up with these designs and these ideas, and then I'd have like my father execute them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just because like I was just so terrible at anything related to like that, like drawing.
Oh, drawing.
Yeah.
That's funny though, because you've kind of found yourself in this. You're kind of in this in between of the art world and curating world and design world. I mean, even then on all the other research and stuff I was doing on you, because I was familiar with the merchant aspect of you and all of that, but I was like trying to get deeper into all the stuff that you have. So it's interesting to me that you're like, yeah, like I'm not really. You're already calling out like you're not really. You're not into the drawing. You're not into that sort of. You see yourself more on the business side of things.
Yeah, I mean, like I can't draw it. Like it's funny. I teach an illustration course at OCAD University in Toronto, and I always have to tell the students at the beginning of the year, like I cannot do anything that you guys can do. I can't draw. Like you don't want like, and I have to tell them, formally, I have to say like, hey, I can't critique your work, because what the students will do is they'll shop their work around and be like, well, Geoff said it was supposed to be like a B+ and he really loved it. And then they'll try to do that to contest their marks if they don't like what the grade they got. Yeah.
Whoa.
So I have to tell them, like, I can tell you how I think it can be applied professionally. I can tell you how I think it can be applied in like a creative sphere. I can tell you whether or not I personally like it, but like, I cannot grade your technique. Like, I know nothing about this. So I have to like make that pretty clear up front. But no, I'm like, I think that's why I like, I do a little bit of what I do is because I can't make things.
Yeah.
Like I just can't make stuff. Like I can't draw, I can't paint, I can't do Photoshop even. Like any design that I do, I either get somebody to do it or I do it in Google Slides. Like I'm really bad at all that stuff.
Well, let's jump back here, because I think there's a string here to pull. But like, so you're Canadian. You're from where in Canada?
Toronto. I grew up in a small town called Peterborough, which is about an hour and a half away from Toronto, but I spent most of my time in Toronto.
Okay. And what's life like growing up there? I mean, it's kind of like New York Junior. I mean, but you were in the suburbs, right?
Yeah, I grew up so going way back, I grew up in Peterborough, Ontario, which is like a really small hillbilly town, just outside of Toronto. We had one record store, like one bookstore. There's like a decent little music scene when I was in high school, because we had like a university and a college there. So there was like, stuff to do, but it was like very much a hillbilly redneck town, just outside of Toronto. So growing up there was, very interesting. I was definitely the outlier, I think. Well, I know I was, because everybody made it very clear that I was. There was no question in my mind that I was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, what were you getting like messed with or whatever?
Yeah, I got bullied. Like I was like, I'm about your age, Jeremy. Like in my 40s. So I was skateboarding like back when it was not a cool thing to skateboard.
Yeah.
Like you got called nasty things if you were skateboarding. And I was also really into, punk rock and stuff growing up. And, I was also like a goofy kid. So I was finding myself with fashion. I was thrifting and I was like kind of dressing funny. So yeah, that didn't fly in, a really small Canadian hockey town, home of the Peterborough Petes.
Oh, yeah. That's funny. I mean, I didn't have the identical sort of situation, but I would say the sport that all of the younger kids were into in St. Louis, where I grew up, was all hockey. I mean, and it was also because, we had the St. Louis Blues, we had Brett Hall, we, I think at one point we had Wayne Gretzky, all these things, and like hockey was life. And for me, I'm like trying to figure out who I am skating as well. And it's funny because I don't know if you feel this. Like, do you ever like wince a tiny bit when people really glamorize like the beauty of skate and skate culture, when you're like, dude, this was the only way I could survive?
I mean, I think I'm happy that it is what it is today. I think it's, must be really nice for kids to be able to express themselves and thrive doing that. But yeah, no, I think it's more like I'm jealous. Like I wish, and part of me too, I wonder like, what could I have been if, I had skate parks and I had a culture where I could be skateboarding. I mean, I guess that's not necessarily the best vocation for me, but but like, I mean, you would get harassed by people, and it was so hard to find, information and stuff too. Cause like I grew up in a small town, so there's like one skate shop. Like that was it. There was board sailing, and it was mainly, mainly like water sports, but I don't know how that worked considering I was in Canada. It was it was not like skateboarding was not their primary thing.
Right. So where were you getting your sort of your cool there when you were saying it's hard to find stuff? Like, would you just go to shops and make friends there? Was it 411 videos for you or what?
It was like a lot of like skate videos. And there was a record store called Blue Streak Records in Peterborough, and that's where I started to really learn about music. So I would go there pretty religiously, and it was run by this guy named Tim. And he was like a real kind of bitter, like stereotypical high fidelity record store owner, but like in a really small redneck town. So
Nice.
he had like a great little community around him, and he was beloved. But he introduced me to Nick Cave and introduced me to all of these bands at the time that I didn't like Nick Cave at the time, but I liked the Birthday Party. But I never would have found any of those things had it not been for that record store. So like when I was growing up, it was the record store, and then hot on the heels of that was like the eve of the internet, so news groups and starting to find more information that way. And that as I think growing up in that time, it kind of you're almost like, I don't know what to do and like how to get stuff, but also like there's stuff out there now. Like I can get my hands on things, which was really fun.
Yeah, I feel like there's a bit of like grit or something. I don't know the right word to use that came from like folks around our generation, into which, like I felt like I cared more about everything I was absorbing because of the effort it took to make that connection in the first place versus now, and by the way, I'm not saying that we're better than or other people were worse. This is not a back in my day sort of thing, but there was a bond that I felt that was created whenever I would get a specific record or learn about a band or whatever that was, because of all these hoops I had to jump through just to get there in the first place. Like Paul McCartney always talks about how much he loves the B7 chord, because way back in the day, him and John Lennon and George Harrison took like a 90-minute bus trip to go to some dude's house who taught them the chord because there was no way that they could learn it otherwise, right? And it's like, I think there's that sort of thing that like gets instilled in some folks when, you work really hard to like get this record or whatever, and you kind of own it more. Like you care like more about that connection because of what it took to get there. I don't know. Did you find that the same with you, or what was that like?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, like I fetishized records and CDs and like everything related to them at the time because it was just so tough to find it. Like I was dependent on this one little record store. So whatever he chose to bring in from distributors,
right,
unless I requested it, which was a whole thing, I was kind of stuck with. So I think it's like, that scarcity makes it desirable. And I think it's like no different from like, you look at the Birkin, like when you were talking, I was like, oh, that's like the Birkin. Like you have to jump through all of these hoops to get this bag, and it's so rarefied. And, when you get it, it's all that much better.
Right. So what made you want to get out? Like what eventually brings you to New York?
So I moved from Peterborough to Toronto to go to university, ended up dropping out of university and worked in Toronto for quite a long time. Like I spent most of my adult-ish life in Toronto working retail, and ended up working in the music and nightlife industry a little bit, and ended up starting this DJ night with my girlfriend at the time.
Okay.
Which was like, and like this was at a time when I was just partying way too much and just having way too much fun, living in a big city. So we started this DJ night, and this DJ night ended up being at a bar that ended up being kind of the hot bar in Toronto at the time. Like that's where all of the best parties were. It was called Trinport, because there was a Trinidadian Portuguese sports bar that had karaoke night. So it was called the Trinport.
Okay.
And it was just like a
All
dump,
right.
but that was kind of like, this was the early aughts. This was like the indie sleaze. So like the dumpier the bar is, kind of the better. So we ended up doing that, and the party ended up going really well because it was at this hot venue. So we had lineups, outside, and people were really into what we were playing. And we got approached by the Drake Hotel, which is kind of like Toronto's equivalent to, you know it, right?
I'm familiar with the Drake Hotel.
Yeah, so we got approached by one of the bookers at the Drake Hotel, and he said, hey, why don't you come do it at the Drake? We'll pay you. You don't have to depend on, bar sales. You'll have like an actual sound system and equipment, and you won't have to deal with them interrupting you mid-set to do a karaoke session. And we can do it right. So we did that. And I basically was really keen. So I would show up in the marketing department because I wanted to be really hands-on about how my night was marketed. This was like this was my baby. And, I would just constantly show up in the marketing department. And then, this was at the time pre-Facebook groups.
Yeah.
Where the way you got the word out was postering. Like you just put up posters around town. So I got a job since I was hanging out so often postering. So I got paid to put up, like you make the wheat paste in your kitchen and then you put up posters around there. And I just kept on showing up and doing that. And I eventually got an internship with them. That turned into a programming booker role where I was like booking talent and things like that. So that was, a dream job for a kid in your early 20s. And then I quickly learned, like I didn't stop drinking until much later in my life, but I quickly learned that like I cannot survive in this world for very long because I would see people around me, like, you see people age, you see people, get really dependent on drugs and alcohol. You see all of those things happen. I was like, this has a shelf life. I can't do this until I'm like 60. So then I started trying to get jobs at little small agencies. So that was when the social media marketing thing was kind of popping off. Like anybody, like if you knew how to use Facebook groups and Twitter, you were like, great, you're a genius. Like you can we need somebody to run these social media accounts. So like you can do that. So that's how I got into working at agencies. I worked for a small agency and I did some work for a hospital. No, not a hospital, sorry, like a giant charity called the Princess Margaret Hospital Foundation. And then from there, I just kind of hustled into like different roles at different agencies. And that turned into, me being a strategist moving to New York.
Wow. Okay. That's very interesting. So you don't come from more that's, I'm air quoting like traditional background of how folks get into that. And I think that's really interesting because a lot of the people that I know, like people like Chris Black and stuff come to mind where it's like you didn't have the more traditional, path. But because of that, you have a bit of this edge, whether you realize it or not, because you're more focused on achieving a task by any means necessary than like, well, no, this peg goes into this hole and this goes here and now we do this, where you're just like, no, what if we blow this entire thing up? But also I think there's a bit of like survival stuff that's kind of kicking in.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So you're working at an agency, you're like, all right, you're moving your way up and you move to New York and what sort of projects are you working on now?
So yeah, I was working at a shop in Toronto called Jam 3. They later got acquired by a company called Media Monks, which has a terrible name. It was very embarrassing to say I worked there in the brief time that I did.
Media Monks?
Media Monks.
Yeah.
They do good work, but it's
I'm sure they do. Great name. I'm into it, actually. Okay. That's one of those things you're like, we're going to embrace this so hard that it's not even funny anymore.
They did. Every little division was a different monk, right?
Oh my God. Yeah.
So I worked exclusively on Meta, so I was part of the Meta Monks team.
Oh,
we were the Meta Monks.
Okay. Yeah,
very
for
cool.
Sure. I get it.
Sure. And then from there, I got an offer from a larger agency called IYKYK. So I went from, working almost exclusively on Facebook. I did some interesting projects for Adidas and stuff. I always liked working on the stuff that like nobody else wanted to touch in the agency.
Why is that?
I don't say this pejoratively, but I think it's way more interesting to figure out how to sell this weird Facebook product, like the Facebook portal or Oculus or something like that, than it is to sell a pair of like really amazing Adidas sneakers that like everybody wants anyways. Like for me, I think it's way more challenging to figure out, okay, how do we sell this weird, thing that's like very unsexy? How do we like create a compelling story around that? Like, how do we sell that thing versus like, yeah, let's do like a crazy augmented reality thing for this sexy shoe that's by a brand that everybody loves.
I think that's a similar trait that a lot of people have, that where it's like you want to do a good job with whatever work you're trying to do, right? I don't know anyone ever who's worked on something and they're like, I just want to fuck this up. Like, I just like, I don't care. So you do want to do a good job, but I think how do you sort of reconcile the ego and that situation into which you're like, yeah, but I'm cool. This product isn't cool. Like, I think it's safe to say initially the earlier sort of, cultural love of, say, the Oculus pre-Meta, people were like, it's kind of weird. So like, how do you sell, and get involved in something like this, but not lose your own sort of cool factor? I don't know the right word to say, but I think it's, yeah.
No, I know what you're saying. For me, I at that time in my life, I kept my work and personal life very separate.
Oh,
So I would like hang out with people from the office, but like I
yeah.
wouldn't really socialize with them all that often.
Why is that?
I think for the reason you stated.
Okay. You're like, look, I got my life here and I'm
Yeah.
doing my cool shit, and then I'm coming in and I'm doing my job, and then when the job is over, I'm going home.
Totally. And I think a lot of it too was, a sense of imposter syndrome with the other stuff I was doing at the time, where it's like, I don't want to burden my coworkers by having them go to a Geoff Snack party or going to this thing that I'm doing.
Why not?
Because I feel like there's a certain obligation. You're obligated.
But that's the whole point of having coworkers, is you get to bring them into shit that like they may not want to do.
I learned that later on. I learned that very like at the end of my days at Jam 3 and at IYKYK, I leaned into that a little bit more. But I was like,
okay,
I don't want to be in this situation, and then I'm indebted to them. I have to go to their thing. Is the other side of it? I have to participate in their whatever they're doing. So that exchange thing.
So I don't know. I was just like improv show, and you're like, oh shit.
I know, and it's like, yeah. And to them, like, I'm probably the improv show where they're like, why do we want to go to this party? Is this loud? Or I don't care about books. Like, why am I being obligated to go to this thing? Like, whatever it is, I was just like, I don't want to burden people with like, hey guys, come to my thing, come to this thing, And like, and I also felt it was like kind of corny too. I think half of it is like this imposter syndrome, and half of it is like, if I have to ask you, you shouldn't be going. You shouldn't need me to ask you to go. You should want to go.
Completely valid. I hear you.
So I think it was that like kind of made me keep it separate. So in that criteria is like I was a craftsman. Like my craft was, creating strategy and communication strategies and brand strategies, and like I wanted to be very good at my craft. And that was like very separate from anything else I did in my spare time. Now that's since changed dramatically, but at the time that was very much my mindset.
Okay, so you have the desire to work on the stuff that no one wants to touch, but it's not it doesn't sound like it's for ego reasons, in the sense that like I want to be the person that sells it. It's more just like this seems more of a challenge.
It seems more of a challenge. This is more interesting to me. Like I'd much rather learn about. So I worked on so many interesting projects.
What is one that you could reference that externally probably had the least amount of brand equity, where you were like, all right, we're gonna take this on?
Like I did a lot of like medical stuff. Not like the evil pharmacy stuff as much.
Okay.
But, like one of my first projects at IYKYK was coming up with like, charting the end-to-end consumer experience for Mayo Clinic patients.
Oh.
And understanding the best way to exit somebody from the system if they're not qualified for care at Mayo Clinic, for example, right? So that was something that was like, very, I'm trying to not be, to use a pun, but very clinical, in the sense that it's like very dry and it's very detailed, and there's a number of different touch points. And like, I think that's something that's like very unsexy, but I like really enjoy doing, because I also, really love research. So for me, it was like, okay, great. Like, let me figure out how Mayo Clinic works. Like that to me is very interesting to be like, and I think also a part of that comes from me being an outsider, and like, I dropped out and I kind of elbowed my way into this industry. It's like, oh, I can figure this out.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of keep tugging at this more because selfishly, I really, really, really wrestle with this imposter syndrome all the time, where it's like, I didn't go to college at all. Like and it's funny because I will teach a few lectures at a few colleges, and I don't have a proper degree, and it's very awkward. And anytime I have a bad day, no matter what, like yesterday, I had just a fucking trash day where there was all these different things I've been working on and stuff was supposed to happen. And one by one, it's just like, boop, all falling apart. And anytime things go wrong, the thing in the back of my head that comes up is like, see, Kirkland, you're a fucking loser because you don't have this college degree. Like your friends that went to Harvard have this, your friend, all these like weird things that tug at the back of your head. And sometimes I can utilize that fear or whatever that is to really push myself. But it feels like most days, if I'm weaker, that fear just dominates me. And I just feel like a clown because I don't have this traditional sort of path, or there's, and it's also why I've been more or less a self-employed for the almost fucking 10 years now, where it's just like, okay, I know how to do this and this works, but if it doesn't, I can tell you exactly why. So like, I mean, do you, I don't, and cause now I'm just being very selfish here for my own, curiosity, but like have you wrestled with that? Maybe not as gory as what I outlined, but.
No, I definitely have, but not when it comes to academia and not when it comes to education, because for me, that was always a point of pride. Not a point of pride. I shouldn't say that.
I get it.
But
like Steve Jobs didn't have a degree sort of attitude.
And it's like, I just knew it wasn't for me. Like, it became very clear in my third year that like, this is just, none of this is sticking. And this is not how I want to learn. So for me, like, for example, like, when I got a job teaching at this university in Toronto, I was like, great. Like my perspective as somebody that like did not enjoy the educational system in Canada whatsoever, and felt that I was not being properly set up for the current job market, I can like do better as a teacher because I can at the very least provide an alternative perspective for my students. And I think
that's beautiful. Yeah.
Thank you. And I think like, I mean, that was partly the only way I could justify the position.
Hey, I get it.
Yeah, that's kind of like, it was a point of pride for me. It's like, yeah, I didn't have a good time and maybe some of you guys aren't having a good time. So I'm going to provide, what I hope to be a dramatically different point of view on the industry and how it works.
Right.
So that's my hope. But I think like, I think everybody has that Achilles heel that, like for me, it's something different. It's not my lack of education. It's something different that I'm like, yeah, I knew this wouldn't work out and this is why. And it's because of this thing that's deep inside you. And then when things go right, it's like, yeah, it's because that thing deep inside you.
Yeah, oh, exactly. Right. Yeah. Because I am obsessed with, more or less, I've always been obsessed with researching anything where I'm like, well, there's no point to just like something unless you want to be an expert in it. I'm like, well, who cares about reading about World War II, like a World War II book? I need to read every single one so I can understand not just how, the people in America felt, but how did the Canadians feel? How did the French feel? How did all these things happen? And next thing you know, I'm like forcing myself to read all these books for the next 8 to 10 years because you can't just casually like something. You have to be an expert in it.
That's my thing too. It's like, I need to know everything. And for me, when I was in university, it's like, yeah, I really love, I don't know, like modern post-war literature, but like, I'm going to ignore everything else. Like, everything. Like, I failed math. We do French instead of Spanish in Canada. So I failed French multiple times. I went to summer school. Like, I almost got expelled. Like, I was like, but I'm like good at English, real good at English, but like, I suck at everything else.
Yeah. Okay. So you're at the agency, you're taking on weird challenges, but meanwhile, you have this other sort of, the more personal life that's happening. When do the parties start popping off?
Oh, the party started popping off I was working at American Apparel in the stockroom. This really paints a picture. Yeah, this really paints a picture.
All right.
Yeah, I was working at American Apparel.
Been there, man. What was your uniform? Drop it real quick. Did you have that burgundy Karate Kid hoodie like everyone else did?
Yeah, the Flex Fleece. Yeah. Yeah, I 100% had I had the gray, I had the purple, I had the white, I had the burgundy.
The purple. Mm-hmm,
yep.
Mm-hmm.
The purple was like the big one in Toronto. Like that was the one that you had. You had the purple Flex Fleece hoodie.
Right. What were your jeans? Because they didn't have jeans at that time. What were your jeans?
They were APC. Super tight APC. Like
were you New Cure?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. New Cure.
Respect.
Before I remember one of my pivotal moments is I finally got paid enough from a party to like actually buy something. So I remember for some reason I was in Montreal and I went to the Holt Renfrew store and I bought a pair of Christian Dior, like Dior jeans from like the Hedi Slimani time.
Dude,
and
you and I exact same thing.
I still have them.
Oh, now that I can't agree with you on. I don't have mine. Do they fit?
No, they stopped fitting like a decade ago. But the wear on them was really, like, it's like I'll sometimes pull them out of storage and be like, this is actually like a well-made pair of jeans. Like they really did it.
Yeah. I mean, I still love the fact that I think that they have the best Dior Homme denim branding is, my opinion, still the best branding, and with the little slits on the back pockets.
Yeah.
And then you had that silver tab that was on one of the belt loops with the little CD. I mean, absolutely beautiful.
Really nice. Yeah.
Okay. So you're definitely in it. So go back to the stockroom.
Definitely in it. Way too deep in it. Yeah. So like that, it was that. And I think on a good day, it would be like a tight button up, like a tight Oxford.
Oh yeah.
On a bad day,
band of outsiders.
I wish.
Yeah.
No, it would be like kind of like a thrifted thing, or I got really into like vintage sportswear, like track jackets and stuff. So it'd be like a lot of track jackets too.
Like, did you have like a Fred Perry thing or?
I went through a Fred Perry phase. I went through an Adidas phase. Like I would like always try to source the like rare Adidas ones that nobody else could get. Because in parallel to all of this, I was actually dealing vintage.
Jeez, how many jobs do you have? See, this is why I couldn't find any good, because you do 50 careers.
I just had to like eat, like, and pay for fucking New jeans all the like, they were not cheap. So
yeah, okay.
So in university, I basically like sold sportswear and denim on eBay.
Yeah, of course you did.
And then in university, I still continued picking in university just because it was fun, and here and there I could sell something. It was something that was in me kind of forever, and it still is. But yeah, so it'd be like something thrifted. If I remember, like I didn't really thrift jeans because you couldn't find jeans tight enough. Like,
yeah, I bought girls' jeans. This was
I didn't, and it wasn't like for any. I just don't think like I could find any that fit me the way I wanted to. Like I think for me, like once I tried on the new Cures, I was like, it's like that perfect stovepipe straight leg.
They're good. Yeah.
So on a good day it was like a vintage Oxford and like a track jacket. On a bad day it was like a deep V with a flex fleece hoodie over top of it.
Oh, a deep V.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like a nasty deep V. I mean, it was different times.
Yeah, you're right. I can't wait for those times to come back. I mean, it's already kind of coming back in ways where there's this like a bunch of grime kids that wear ultra low rise, very, very tight denim and itty bitty leather jackets. But a few years ago, they didn't do that at all. Versus like a person who, like has been walking St. Mark's, their whole life. Like this is all of a sudden this entirely new visual identity. And it's like, they're really idolizing the Strokes who idolize the Ramones.
Yeah, that's a really good way of putting it. That is like directly the lineage.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't know about that grime thing. I mean, good for them.
Oh, yeah. It's funny because there's a couple guys, I've seen them on like social media stuff, and they talk about, they're like, oh, like here's the fit breakdown of all the stuff you need to buy. And they reference all these brands that are vintage that are not in my head because I'm like, no, that's still available. And you're like, oh no, that's 20 years ago.
Like what?
This is, they talked about at one point, like early Acne denim, where like Acne was the, if you were rich but cool, you had the Dior jeans, unless you were you or me, where you just leveraged your whole life to do it.
Yeah.
But if you had like really cool taste and no one really knew about it, you were even more unbranded and you wore the Acne Max, or I don't know what the other one was. But yeah, they talked about Acne. They also talked about American Apparel hoodies as like layering pieces, under members only jackets. And you're like, that checks out.
I did that.
That's all
I did that exact outfit.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Good for them. I mean, I'd love to. I mean, will they wear a deep V? Like, can they do that?
That might be a bridge too far, but I feel like it shouldn't be.
It shouldn't be.
I mean, I wore a deep V. I also wore a vest, proper vest.
I've always been anti-vest.
Oh, dude. Well, I was too until I put it on and thought I was fucking cool.
Did it have little buttons?
Yeah, it had little buttons. It was just because I wanted to be Pete Doherty minus the drug use.
Okay, that paints a picture. That totally paints a picture.
I wore a fedora. I had like very elongated last footwear from, it was Paul Smith that I bought at Century 21, and it had a very almost pointy toe. Yeah. Anyway, I digress. Okay,
so that look worked.
It did.
We would have been friends.
Yeah, it was cool as hell.
I would have thought you looked cool.
Yeah, it's because we both looked cool then.
Yeah, maybe. It's all contextual. Okay. It's all contextual.
Absolutely. And I think if the best part of like learning how to get dressed and learning your own personal style is if anyone can't reference multiple periods into which they really cringed at what they wore, then I don't think they've ever successfully made their own style, because you have to just like run into the wall over and over and over again.
I agree. Like, you have to fail.
Yeah, it's true. If someone's like, oh, I've always worn, classic Ralph and this, and I've never, and you're like, no, then you just didn't take any risks. Next.
Yeah. Or like at the time, you just look normal, like a normal kid, because like that
Yeah,
was what
it's
the
true.
normal kids wore. Is they would just wear like a Ralph Lauren polo, and
Yeah.
that was that.
Yeah, it's like, talk to me when you had 2 or 3 sticking out of your neck, and you were, T9 texting someone who was about to get off their shift at Hollister. Then we can have a conversation. But okay, so you have this kind of budding career going with multiple lives happening. When did you start to feel like, I think I know what I'm doing in your own, and like really kind of leaning into your business, which is what, where you are now?
Yeah. So, I still do consulting. Like most of my money is coming in from consulting for brands as a strategist.
Mm-hmm.
But with the book thing, that came together, a little while ago in Toronto. And how that came together, it was during COVID. I'd been making like, a decent amount of money at agencies. I was doing okay. So I started buying books, and I've always loved buying art books. But I had the means to be able to like actually go shopping for art books and spend a little bit more money. And
Yeah.
in Toronto, there's not that many stores. Like there's just not, great vintage art book stores in Toronto. So I'd been shopping and being a little frustrated buying stuff. And I also like created this arbitrary rule for myself that I would never buy anything online at the time. And I think that's just because like I know that I'm at a very addictive personality and that I would quickly become broke if I started doing that. So I limited myself to only the things that I could find in Toronto or on my little travels.
Wow. Okay.
So
fascinating.
Yeah. So that was like what I was doing. And then COVID hit, and I had I was a little bored, and I wanted something to do, and I wanted to get people together and, in a safe way. I wanted to interact with people. So I decided to, I was renting a really nice loft at the time. So I decided, hey, why don't I just have people over for kind of like this elevated garage sale? I called it a studio sale.
Mm-hmm.
And I had people book links on Calendly. I'd only have 2 people in at a time. And I would have, my jazz music playing on my record player. And I just basically styled my apartment like the way I thought like a bookstore should look. I've always had like pretty sparse, minimal furniture. So I opened it up as a little bookstore by appointment, and people came. I had all my little books out on my coffee table like you would see anywhere else.
And this is your home?
This is my home. Yeah.
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 Okay.
It was a blast. And it was fun. It was like, I got to share like, I got to talk about furniture. I got to talk about books. I got to interact with people about, things that I was really excited about. So it went pretty well. On the back of that, I ended up being in touch with a real estate firm in Toronto. And I basically made a pitch like, hey, why don't you give me a storefront and I'll open up like a little scrappy bookstore as a pop-up. It'll be a fun little project for all of us. Like, just give me the keys. It won't cost you guys a dime. And they ended up doing that. So I ended up on the back of that project opening up, and this so I was working at an agency, so it was all like evenings and weekends. So I basically got the keys to this little tiny storefront on Toronto's Ossington Avenue. I was right beside Lost and Found at their old location.
I mean, that's a killer location for
Great location.
Folks who aren't there. Yeah.
Yeah, really good location. Like cute coffee shops. It was kind of like, I don't know what the equivalent would be for New York. I guess maybe like the Soho of New York now.
Yeah, it is. I mean, that's a very, very high foot traffic area.
Yeah. So it was great. So I went in there. It was just like a shithole. I swept as much as I could. I cleaned up as much as I could. Like there's just garbage everywhere. Because like there's no reason for them to clean it up. So I did that. And then I ended up reaching out to, I think, our mutual friend Bijan from Intramural Shop. And I said,
Great
hey,
taste. Yeah.
I've got books. I'm going to get a local dealer, this dealer in Toronto named Ian. He has a shop called Jasper Shop, like really incredible curation. He brought in some furniture. I brought in some of my own furniture. And I said, hey, like, if you want to open up, like, if you want to send me some product, I'll sell some of your t-shirts there. I think it would be great. I love what you do. And Bijan was into the idea. So he actually flew down to Toronto for a week or so. And it was, Bijan had, some homewares and furniture alongside my books, and we had the vintage furniture. I also knew too that like Toronto wouldn't show up to anything unless there was like, if I got New York involved with it, everybody in Toronto would love it because that's what Toronto is like. You need the New York cosign. Yeah,
that is so strange to me because I feel like, I mean, I guess it's not that, foreign of a concept into which you need some other like aspirational place to sign off on. But like Toronto is already really cool. I mean, Toronto is cool.
Toronto's all right. It's getting it's a lot cooler. It's a lot cooler now, I think.
Okay. I mean, that's fine. Yeah. All right. Fair.
It's a lot cooler now, I think. And I think it's progressively getting cooler. And I think there's a lot of amazing talent in Toronto right now.
Absolutely.
Like so many people doing great stuff there. Like it's a really good spot. It's in a really good spot right now.
So you get the New York cosign.
Yeah. Bijan flies in. We have a great time. Like that we really kind of became friends during that project. And it went well. Like it went really, really well. As a result of that, I initially imagined it just being an IRL thing, like only in person. But it kind of necessitated that I start selling online. So I started selling online, and then I get this job offer to move to New York. So then I basically packed stuff up and moved to New York. And at the time I thought, this is the end of it. New York has a billion different amazing booksellers and dealers. Like I'm not filling a void anymore, because the void I was filling in Toronto was a very nicely curated experience of vintage design books that you might want to buy. Whereas, in New York, there was Karma Books at the time. There's Printed Matter, there's Mast Books, there's Dashwood, there's Left Bank. I could go on and on and on and on. I was like, I'm not filling a void in the market anymore. So I kind of figured it would peter off when I moved to New York.
Quick question. When you were, before you decide to start selling any of these things, when did you feel, or maybe right when you decided to start selling these things, when did you feel they're like, oh, there's enough stuff. Like I have enough stuff to sell?
That's a great question. I don't think it was a matter of I've got enough stuff. It was more a matter of what could come out of this project, and can I force myself to be comfortable selling these things that I love?
Oh,
so it was more like, it was never like enough stuff. It was more, space and money was an issue. Like I also quickly found out if I can sell a bunch of stuff, I can get something better. Like not better, but I can trade up a little bit.
Yeah.
So it was more for me, the threshold was not necessarily enough stuff. The threshold was, can I be comfortable parting with these things? And that was kind of the big unlock and the mindset shift for me in this project.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, because I think that's like, was there ever a situation in which someone's looking at something and, you're going to sell it and you're like, damn it, actually, it's not for sale?
Yeah, that happens all the time.
Really?
Oh, totally. Yeah. I mean, there's
someone's enthusiasm ignites the spark on why you purchased it in the first place. And you're like, shit, actually, this is sorry.
I used to do that. I mean, I just recently sold a book, and I do regret selling it recently. But yeah, I mean, that happens all the time. I mean, there's so many regrets, but there's always something new. Like that's the way I kind of see it. There's a good attitude. There's like a billion one of ones out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's kind of how I think about it. So yes, like, if I sell something that's like a real one of one, it's signed, it's an association copy or blah, blah, blah. There's always going to be another one. There's always going to be something else.
Yeah. Yeah. What's something that you sold recently that you were like, whoops?
I mean, one of the things that really sticks with me is I had this amazing Donald Judd poster from Leo Castelli Gallery, 1977. It was an alternate design to the one that was reissued by the Judd Foundation recently. Mm-hmm. And I sold that out of Colbo, actually, to somebody that came in from LA and was really enthusiastic about the stuff that I had. And I said, hey, and the problem with me too is like I love a deal. Like I love the process of negotiating and making a deal. So I was like, I got in this zone where I'm like, I got something else for you. And I went in the back and I pulled out this Judd poster. I was like, this, normally isn't for sale, but I was just like caught up in the moment, and they ended up buying it. And I was like,
whoops.
Yeah, I was like, damn it. I really loved that poster. It was great.
On the Judd note, do you know why all of a sudden it feels like Donald Judd is in the like top 3 of all of these people who like design? And it just feels like it's kind of out of nowhere, where it's like everyone's referencing Donald Judd or talking about how they want a Judd chair. And I feel like maybe 10 years ago, I don't know anyone who would talk about Donald Judd.
I don't. That's a great question. It's a tough thing to write, because like part of my job is to anticipate these things.
Yeah.
Or at the very least be up to date on these things.
Yeah, like it basically Donald Judd is trendy now to like Donald Judd. And is it the Kardashian thing? I know that was one thing, but maybe that's incorrect.
Great. That was great.
Oh.
I think that definitely was helpful for everybody involved.
Yeah.
That was super funny. I think it's always a matter of people wanting to know about things or be into things that other people aren't into. And I think that is a marker of status for people. And I think right now where things are going, and I think it's a marker of status, and I think it's a marker of belonging and shared values.
Okay.
Like you and I, we bonded early on in this conversation about skateboarding. That was shared values that we have.
Yeah.
And that's like a purely cultural thing. So I think when it comes to Judd, that's just, one of the mechanisms people have. And I think, I think it's very inoffensive. It looks good anywhere. Like you put a Judd chair in almost any room, it's going to hold its own. It's going to look really good. They've got great presence. And beyond that, it's a tough thing to articulate, but like I feel it, and I feel that about other artists, and I just like know there's something in the air. But I can't articulate it.
Yeah, I do feel like thanks to people like you, for better and for worse, there are these kind of, merchants and tastemakers who, for many people, they like people like you, there was like, oh, like they have the Judd poster, or they have vintage USM, or they're into like they have a great Jean Prouvé chair, like things like this, where a lot of people come for you first, but then they see the other things that you're selling. And all of a sudden they're like, oh, that's going to be my Radiohead. Like that's going to be my sort of, if you know brand. But all of these people are doing that. And because of the internet, now anything from the Judd Foundation has gone up close to like 400%. Like you can't get a Judd chair anymore for like, I don't know, less than like $5-6 grand, maybe 10 grand now. I mean, the prices are, and this is for the plywood stuff, which someone could essentially build from Home Depot. But so there's like things like that. Then Prouvé is another one. And you're seeing how this ripples across the entire industry, into which Vitra, are emailing me and being like, hey, you remember that cool Prouvé chair that someone, was blowing up on Instagram? Well, we got it remade and here it is. And you're like, what the fuck? Oh, by the way, this is $6,000. And you're like, damn it.
Yeah, like people see the dollars, like Vitra sees the dollar signs, I think, in all of that. Yeah, it's a funny thing. I mean, I think I think like my Radiohead is such a great way of putting it. Like at least for me personally.
Yeah, because it's like kind of mainstream anyway, but you're like, no, it's not. Nobody knows about this.
Mine. I'm the Radiohead guy. Yeah.
Yeah, you're like, I'm the one that got you guys into this. And I think, by the way, I say this all tongue in cheek in the sense that I do think it's great that there are other, great designers and artists who are getting their attention, more now. But it could also just be the fact that, I'm probably in some type of echo chamber on my algorithm, that's everyone is referencing this specific artist right now, or now it's really cool. Like I feel like all these people out of nowhere that are on my timeline, it's like they just discovered jazz, and they're like, man, you really want to get nuts? Like you got to listen to jazz. And I'm like, what?
I will say about jazz, I discovered I was late coming to jazz. I got into jazz like 4 or 5 years ago. Okay. I literally sold half my record collection and replaced it with jazz.
Whoa!
Because I was just so into it.
Okay, what's your top jazz record? Your flex record?
I mean, I love like freaky, free, like kind of spiritual jazz. I think the Ascension by John Coltrane is like just an absolutely insanely great piece of music. Like it's visual.
Oh, that's a back of the stack Coltrane pull. Okay.
Back of the stack Coltrane pull. Great cover. Referenced by Glenn Branca for some work that he, like some guitar thing that he did, which was like a New York thing. I think for me that would be. What about you?
I don't know. I mean, some of the stuff that I got into was a lot later, but like I got like there was a bit of jazz that I liked, but because early on when I had this desire to be this musician, everyone was like, jazz theory is the highest plane. Like if you really want to get into it. And so I was like, okay. And most of the jazz was, early on was like a lot of stereotypical like Miles Davis and stuff like that. But then I got into like Ross and Roland Kirk and and then I was like, oh, and then all of a sudden someone's playing like Dave Brubeck and you're like, oh, I guess I can get into that. And you're like, well, this feels, if it's Take 5 and like 500 people know it from a commercial, then like maybe you got to dig a little deeper. But for me, I was like, well, maybe I just need to like learn or master someone's entire catalog. And I was like, okay, I'm going to like get into all the Ross and Roland Kirk stuff. And then what else did I get to? I mean, I got into like a bunch of like Stan Getz, which was helpful. Yeah. And then there was some older Coltrane, but like probably the biggest stuff, like I had a Thelonious Monk poster that I found at a Goodwill.
That's very cool.
In Harlem. And it was like Thelonious like at the Apollo or something. and I found it, and it was framed. And for a long time, that was the poster. That was like my one, like, I'm an adult sort of poster that I had in my room. But it was because I found it for like $5 or $6 on my way to Fairway when I lived in Harlem. And so like I grabbed that, and then I was like, well, shit, I don't think I know enough about Thelonious. Like I probably really need to get in there. And then that kind of like how he presented himself with this cool ass hat and all these things, like I kind of dug in deeper. But even then, I think there's a billion people who could just like, dance in circles around me with deep jazz records that I should be, better suited to. I think the concepts of people, like when people reference like, oh, no, like that's a studio album. Like, no, like you don't know because you're referencing like a studio album. You need this live recording or this person live in Italy. Like there's a Thelonious live in Italy that a lot of people like. And it's not because it was reissued, but I was like, who the fuck cares? Yeah. I was like, I want the one where the person said, that is the recording. Like the artists themselves, especially with like Grateful Dead, where it's like, no, we all agreed this is the actual recording versus when someone was feeling it another night. Don't care. Don't care about the live session in Ithaca. Who gives a shit? I want, what did they say was good enough for the master? And that is the definitive, version of that song. But I digress.
So many layers to all this stuff. Like when like as I'm getting into books, it's like, I think I'm credible, but there's so many more book dealers out there that just like dance circles around me when it comes to knowledge and condition and all of these other different things. And I think it's just like there's always going to be like you're never going to become like a true expert or you're never going to feel like you're a true expert in anything because there's always somebody that knows more. And I think that's the beauty of it is there's always something to learn.
Touche. Yeah, I agree.
Like always, like I love jazz, and you were like the Ascension is a deep cut. There's other people that would like if I was in a different room, Jeremy, like I'd get laughed out of the room. You'd be like, oh, of course, every dude that looks like you says the Ascension. Like they laugh at you, and it's like, well, and they'll be like, well, what about the live recording, or what about this like fucking unreleased album thing?
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I think also having the access to information. Like I was at a coffee shop and they were playing like some jazz thing. And I'll be honest, I didn't know what it was. I was like, it's like, this sounds, I was like, what is this? And I see a guy Shazam the song. So he holds up his phone. And then because of the angle of his like laptop and screen, I can see what he's writing, which is fine. And then I see him chat GPT, the artist. And I think I don't know, maybe it was like Mulatu, Asaki or whatever, right. And then I see him type, 3 underrated records. And so then I see him go and look at his, Spotify and add it to his queue of these underrated records that ChatGPT sold him. And in my head, I was like, that is the most ass backwards way to dig for gold is essentially, which is fine. We're at a coffee shop. We're at a big chain coffee shop. It's a fucking Starbucks. He Shazams the song. Then he looks on his computer, uses AI to tell him what are the underrated records to then listen to. Where it's like, what? You can't text a friend. You can't,
And specifically asking for underrated is a curious addition. That's a very curious addition to that. Because like I've done it where like, my whole thing right now is I'm like looking to get into new music that I was just too snobby to be into when I was a kid. So like I'll just be like, yeah, like what is a good Rolling Stones record? Or what is a good record by this other band, but I will never be like, what's the deep cut? Because like, I know I shouldn't be starting there. Like, I know that like, I'm probably going to hate it. Like like if you start me out, like I don't listen to the Grateful Dead. If you start me off on a Grateful Dead deep cut, I probably will not enjoy that because I won't know what the songs were initially supposed to sound like. So I won't know the deviations. And I don't fucking know anything about the Grateful Dead, but I don't know, like the fact that you're going for the underrated ones is like it's a very bold choice, I think.
I think that's the thing where it's like, yeah, because now, and this is some of the stuff that like is almost the theme of this conversation where, what and know well is like a part of your, weird sort of stock price as a person. Into which now, or it's like I was with some kind of casual friends in New York the other night, and I could hear everyone kind of creating this pecking order of like arbiters of taste, into which someone was referencing a movie, and then someone wanted to be like, well, what they were referencing this thing, and this was this, and then someone else is then and I'm like, what the fuck? Like, we couldn't just appreciate the generic first thing that the person talked about. someone in the conversation had to one up that person with some other, yeah, but did you know? And then that person did that. And it turned into this like circle of, I know I have this other level of understanding. And even then, and I will say these people, like 3 of them are not really friends. It was just, I'm at the table with them. And I just was like, this is so fucking lame. I was like, this person just referenced weapons, right? Let's have the conversation about that thing first. Then all of you ding dongs trying to pull these other things of like what was really behind it. Like we can't just enjoy art anymore. We have to prove that we know more about it in order to like prove our level in the social hierarchy. And it drives me insane.
Knowledge is power.
I guess so, but not when it's Chat GPT. Not when it's fucking AI. Underrated? Well, what's an underrated movie by, Zach Krieger, weapons?
That to me, like, I like doing that, but like I keep it in the privacy of my own home.
That's fine. That's okay.
Like, I like going deep, obviously, and I think you do too. But I think I totally agree with you that like nobody really wants to hear that. Like you're saying that for you. You're not saying that for the benefit of the table.
True. Yeah. But I feel like it's almost a menswear thing or fashion thing where it's like, I can't just agree with someone. I need to add additional layer in order to prove. I say this as a person who wrestles with this. So, for folks here, which is kind of why I'm hammering on this, is like, yeah, like if I agree, then I'm just the same. But if I add an additional context or layer, now I have more value in our conversation. Because now I'm a person that knows something that someone else doesn't. When it's like, we all want to wear a blue jacket. Like, we're good. A nice navy blue blazer is a classic and we're good. We don't have to flex on tailor knowledge and some sort of thing. I don't know. And I think maybe it's also a thing that happens like in your 40s when you're like, fuck, I just tapped basic taste. I have to define thyself.
I went through that very recently. So I was getting a suit because I don't like, a lot of my stuff is still in Toronto. My body has changed a little bit.
Welcome to the club.
Yeah. Yep. So I was recently searching for a suit to wear to my friend's wedding reception, and it was like cocktail attire. Mm-hmm. And the suit that I thought I could wear, I could not. So I had to go get a suit, and I didn't want to spend a ton of money on it because like I just didn't have time to get it tailored. It kind of needed to be a day of situation.
Oh,
and
wow.
I love J. Crew. I went to J. Crew, friends, and I got this, great blue suit. And I also ended up getting a white Oxford because like
nice.
Yeah, it was a great little experience and they did a great job. But they were like, do you need a tie for this? I'm like, I think I need a tie. I think the tie is really going to pull everything together. And they were like, we've got these ties here. I'm like, I can't buy a full J. Crew look. I need to go get a vintage tie. Like I need to have some semblance of something. Mm-hmm. So I ended up going and picking up a vintage tie. But for me, it's like I shouldn't be wearing all J. Crew because like that I need something else in there to show that I've got like this elevated taste. And I had to go search out this vintage tie, and luckily I found a good one. But
there you go.
Yeah, but the tie at J. Crew was great. Like that would have absolutely done the trick. But I wanted to be able to say the suit is J. Crew and the tie is vintage.
Yeah, vintage is such a level of like social clout, especially when people will ask me like, oh, like I post a picture of fit and someone's like, oh yeah, ID on this. And I'm like, it's vintage. And for a while, it used to be I lied because it was something whack. And I'd be like, oh, well, it's a vintage, and now I'm like, no, fuck it, man. It's like, I don't know what it is. It fits. Yeah. That's my answer.
I think vintage is absolutely like having a moment right now. Like it's so much. I think it's so much cooler. I forget what podcast. I might have been Throwing Fits where like they made a comment about somebody's mentioned that they had vintage Prada, and it's like so much cooler to say you have vintage Prada than like actual new Prada.
Yeah, well, it's like because the truth is that's the only thing we can afford because real high end luxury is just absurd in the prices.
Yeah, that's. I think that's the real reason everybody's into it. And it's accessible.
Yeah. So you create Voltron of retail cool stores with you and all the homies. And where do you feel like you've kind of been now? Because like, where did things come in where it's like Noah's asking you to curate stuff, and J. Crew or Colbo and all these people are now like you're vibe curating full time.
It's turning into a bit of a project for sure. Like it's definitely taking up more and more of my time doing this because, on top of that, I'm selling online. I have clients who I, kind of put together little decks of books for, and they purchase
Oh,
from me. Yeah, like I have a few private clients where, they're just not really online in the same way we are. So I'll just I know what they're interested in, and every so often I'll just send them images of books that I think they might want to have or reference.
could you give me an example of like an inquiry that you get that leads you to these private client sales? Because I do think that, like we were talking about, like having a specific type of book in your house for, almost the generic thing is to buy the Tom Ford book and you place it in a visible shelf and never open it. But like, do you get things like that where it's like, hey, I need cool looking books or?
No, for me, it's mostly people looking for references. So the people that I'm doing this for are typically designers or creative directors, and they need it for references. Or it's like they need it for the office. And I don't really know have an idea of what goes on in that office. Maybe it's to make them look cool in the office, or maybe it's an actual reference point in the office.
Right.
But I think it is references.
Okay.
I don't think it's entirely negative to have a book in your house as a vibe thing, because I think that can lead to something else. Like one of the things I'm pretty bullish on is like, I think it's good to judge books by covers. Like there's a great, yeah, 1,000,000%. There's like a great old like saying from, vintage book dealers. Don't judge a book by its contents when thinking about like, literary first editions and stuff, because like all the juice is in the cover. The juice is in like the condition of the dust jacket, the edition of the book, any sort of signatures or inscriptions on it and stuff. Like that's where the money is. If I have a copy of, I don't know, I'm trying to think of a good, I have a great example. I recently, and this is something that I regret. I recently sold a copy of Blondes Have More Fun. It's just like a funny book, like not a funny book, but like a very like American book. It's not rare, but and it's like the person who got it absolutely isn't going to read it. But the reason that copy is great, and the reason that I sold it for a good price, is that it was signed by the author. And not only was it signed by the author, it was signed by the author and inscribed to Evie, I think Evelyn. I'll have to check. Evelyn, who was the mother in Grey Gardens.
Oh shit.
So it was signed from the author with a warm inscription about, how beautiful the mother in Grey Gardens was to the mother in Grey Gardens. And if it's like inscribed by the author to a known personality, and the inscription also speaks to their relationship or somebody's position in culture, like that,
right.
Like without that inscription, that's a $5 book at best. And I sold it for like a few hundred because of that inscription. Like that's what that's what the person was buying. It had like a great pink cover, and with like a Hirschfield caricature of a blonde woman, and like that was it. Like it was the cover and the inscription that really made it. So I think too, like, just as we look through records, you get good at like understanding the visual language of books and like the visual language of covers. So like one of the things I'll always do if I'm looking for, interiors or design books or even art books, is if the cover is interesting, I'll open it up and I'll take a look. And then from there, I begin to start to evaluate the contents. I'll start to evaluate like who the artist is, blah, 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 blah. But I know that like if the cover grabs me, then like I should probably take a look at it. So I think cover is like really, really important. I think it can speak to it's a way of thin slicing, like what's on, like understanding what's on the inside and editing.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. What do you think about people writing in their books, like notating and annotating? Pro or against?
My behavior in that is like for visual books that like I collect, I absolutely don't do that. I would never ever do that. And even like I have like a very specific pencil I use to write prices on the insides of books that can be very easily erased and doesn't leave a mark.
Oh,
that's a little trade. Well, it's not a trade secret, but that's like what a lot of booksellers do. Is there's this very specific type of pencil that you can like write prices and like little notes in the inside cover of a book that can like be very, very easily erased.
Good to know.
But when I'm reading, like if I'm reading a book, I'll fold, like I don't use bookmarks. I fold the pages.
No.
Yeah.
Why?
Because it's there for the information. It's there for the information. It's there to sit on my shelf to remind me that I've read this book and this is now a part of like my life and who I am. But it doesn't need to be in good condition.
Yeah, you're right.
I'll just beat it up. Like I'll fold over the pages. I'll like underline stuff. I'll like toss it. But like if it's a book that I'm like collecting, then it's like I'm very careful. I'll never do anything like that to it. So it just like depends on like why I have it. If I have it for like reading and information, like a lot of what we're talking about is like, circling what W. David Marks writes about. And like my copy of Status and Culture, like so many page folds, so many highlights, so many notes, like it's beat to hell. because like it's a utility.
Right. Yeah.
That's at least
true.
how my brain thinks about it. And also too, I think like quite honestly too, part of it's economy. Like I know I'm not going to resell it, so I don't need to worry about its resale value. I think that's like another thing too, if I'm being really honest.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I mean, that's happened with me where there's a few things that I've written in and then I've been like, oh no. And then at one point, maybe I'm like 10 milligrams high on something. I'm like, maybe it would be good to have my name and everything. Cause like if anything ever like happened to it, my kids will be like, hey man, this was dad's.
I think that's kind of cool. I think that's kind of cool.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe.
I think you just need to commit to it. Like you can't go halfway on something like that.
Yeah. My wife went to an estate sale the other day. And the people that were selling these things, they lived in this house the house was like 100-year-old. And they had lived in the house for, I don't know, 50, 60 years. They're all retiring. They were both teachers, I think at like WashU. And there was a room, she said, that was filled with Moby Dick books of just like almost every edition and every, and so she bought a couple that were like, 90, 100 years old or something. I mean, they were very, 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 very old. And I mean, one of them, it says J.M. Dent and Sons on the front. And then on the spine, it says Moby Dick or the White Whale by Herman Melville. And inside the book, I mean, this is fucking crazy. It says, Dearest Aunt Emma from Ben, December 1921.
I love that.
And you're like, dude, we're approaching over 100 years, man.
I love finding inscriptions. It's so much fun.
I mean, it's inside. I mean, you can see like how it was actually like printed and bound, and then it says first issue of this edition, 1907, reprinted 1921, and you're just like, it's incredible. But this book, I say this to tie it up that like I am never, ever, ever going to read this. One, because I'm terrified. It seems so fragile given the fact that it's over 100 years old and it's sitting in my hand right now. But it is a very, very cool thing to have out and, have displayed.
Cool. Yeah, like the inscription makes it. The inscription, the age, the patina on it, like all of those things make it.
Yeah.
That's like so much of my criteria for finding stuff.
Yeah.
Is all those elements. Like I recently posted, I was really lucky enough to get some Jenny Holzer material. So Jenny Holzer, known for like, doing public art with different messages on it, usually like social or political. I got a copy of one of her inflammatory essays posters. So you've probably seen those. They're like the multicolored ones with like all of those statements down in like a very clinical way. You can find them around. They're not cheap, but you can find them around enough. But I found one that was torn off a wall. And for me, the fact that it was torn off a wall and that like that to me cements the fact that this is original. This was used at the time and it's just infinitely better and infinitely more rare. Like in my opinion, like I'd been waiting to get an inflammatory essays poster and like that's my copy.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, other than books, because I did want to pull this up because on your site, I mean, one of the things that was sold says Damien Hirst at the Wolseley signed napkin.
Yeah.
Like, how in the fuck do you find things like this? It's great. And I love that it exists, but I am, curious, like, where does that pop up?
That came from a European dealer that I work with. He'll send me stuff and he knows what I like and he's really good, so I'll buy most of it. So that came from a European dealer. A lot of my stuff comes from relationships I have with folks like that, like usually like older men. And, they know what I'm after. They know that I pay a fair price and they kind of give me that material. Where he got it from, it's a funny thing. Like all of this stuff, like mostly just changes hands through various dealers. And I happen to be in New York City and I happen to have this brand. So like, I'm kind of near the, I don't know, like I deal to other dealers sometimes, but I typically am like kind of the end point in that dealer circle. Like for me, after it goes to me, it goes to the public.
Right.
Where there's like a lot of dealers that make their money and make their living just dealing to other dealers.
Yeah. I mean, there's watches are like that. I mean, there's a handful of people I know and they only sell to dealers. And it's because there's a communication like reduction. And, if you sell to a dealer, that, one, if you're buying from a dealer, A, B, and C are met. And if you're selling to that person, they're not going to hassle over this, or this, or they have an understanding of like payment or whatever it is. Right. But yeah, because that's, especially when you're selling things like, okay, a napkin in this case. I mean, how does one even like trace the provenance and or, deal with shipping a fucking napkin? the taste level is off the charts. It's very much, I think, and which is maybe one of the reasons why this podcast is like so all over the map too, is like trying to hone this into one specific thing is impossible because, you know, your real sort of career achievement or trajectory is almost like this, you know, never ending tree branch with all these extensions off of it. You know, it's fantastic, to be honest with you. So
some people might call it like a lack of skill or direction, but I like that take.
Hey, if you're eating, you're good.
That's it. That's exactly it. But like most of my deals, like there's a few things where I know that, you know, going back to like thinking about curation and editing, you know, there's certain material that I'll come across that I just don't think is right for me to sell. Like either I don't personally like it or I don't personally think it's right for my site or my aesthetic. And in those cases, if it still has value, I'll sell that directly to another dealer and just not talk about it.
Right.
And it's not because I think it's bad material. Like I recently sold an old 1988 Basquiat show poster. Really beautiful poster, but it's like, you
wouldn't put that on your site?
I don't think this was a bit different actually.
Okay.
I deal in like a lot of Basquiat material and I don't think I necessarily have enough buyers for Basquiat at like a certain price point. So for me, it's like, I didn't want to try and force it. I didn't want to like make a big deal of this Basquiat poster because like, you know, a lot of people have like, you know, he's a very canonized artist and his output is very prolific. So for me, rather than doing all of that, I sold it directly to another bookseller here in New York. They have a much broader and quite frankly, much wealthier clientele than me, and they'll be able to sell it and I'll be able to get like a couple bucks out of it.
Yeah.
So in that, and like, I think the thing that I'll like kind of double back on your question of probing about Basquiat. I think Basquiat is absolutely right for me. I love his work, but it's not something that like offering that specific Basquiat piece was not something that I was excited about. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I was happy. I would have been happy to offer it. I bought it with the intent to sell it and offer it on my site. But where I am right now, it's just like I wasn't excited by it in the same way that I'm excited by like a napkin signed by Damien Hirst.
Well, I think therein lies the fact that what you really sell too is you sell to tastemakers. Like you're a tastemaker who sells to other tastemakers because, I mean, I'll say it, like having a Basquiat poster in your house, you know, provenance or not, is maybe not as cool as some other artist that a person might have to Google later.
Potentially.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
And I think it depends on the Basquiat poster. Like this one had a great backstory. It was like 1988. It was his last European show ever. It was at a really amazing European gallery. So like some Basquiat posters are greater than others, I think. But yeah, no, like, but on the whole, that was not something that I was like mega excited to like bring to market. And a lot of the stuff that like I look to do is like, I'm a pretty good business person, but like I'm also, I don't see this as a purely business project. So for me, a lot of what I look for too, and I'll take, you know, I'll sacrifice profit or even sometimes, you know, this will cost me money, but I look for things that I want to be the guy to bring certain things to market. I want to be the person that's offering this stuff. I want to be the person that's like showing this stuff. So for me, that's like a big part of the hunt for me right now is like, what am I excited to share with people? And like, what material do I want to be the guy that brought it to market?
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, that being said, what is the sort of material and things that you're excited about the most these days?
Right now, and this is, I don't know, maybe some free game for people, but I'm really excited about, I'm really excited about conceptual art. So, you know, in the 60s and 70s, people like Chris Burden, Marina Abramovic, Daniel Buren, Adrian Piper, David Hammonds, like conceptual artists are, you know, I'm very excited about offering that work because I think the really interesting thing about conceptual art is that it was performance based and it was like it was based on happenings. So one of this Marina Abramovic piece that I have that's really interesting is a performance where she is like combing her hair and saying the artist must be beautiful again and again and again, and combing it with like increasing force. And the only real record of that is like potentially a video, but like the invitation card, which I have.
Oh, wow.
So it's like so when you start to think about conceptual art and these happenings, that to me is very interesting that like these are like a very important record of this work being done.
Yeah, but it sounds like too, which I think is great, where it's not so much, okay, because in most cases, right, if a person has, I'll put this, for example, upstairs in our like dining room, we have a poster from the Met, and it's the Ray Kawakubo Comme des Garçons thing.
Nice.
And it's great. And we love it. And it's special to us because we went there together. We brought my mom, all of these other things make up why I like it. But in essence, it is a poster advertising, or well, not advertising, but explaining the installation and the experience. But yours is one level removed in the sense that this is an invitation to the, art experience versus a thing exactly from the art product itself, which many people could argue like, well, anything that's connected to it is it in general. But I think like that's like seeing how you're like one level, like one degree of separation more from some of these things, I think also adds a very unique characteristic to it.
Yeah, I think that's definitely interesting too. And, it's like, it's not like, these performances were wildly popular at the time. She did not have the profile that she has right now in the 70s.
Right.
So like that, like the mailing lists weren't big, and that's like how galleries got the word out about these things. They like collected mailing lists,
right?
And these invitations in this paper ephemera would be sent to a mailing list, and that's why like the early stuff from these different galleries is always more scarce, not necessarily more important, but more scarce because they had a smaller mailing list.
Yeah, because I would imagine in this case, the invitation, there's probably a very, very small amount of those that went out because the mailing list probably wasn't that big anyway compared to what, a poster from the Louisiana Museum in Copenhagen, right? Like there's a gajillion of those that were made and they're going to be made for a long time. But
and then like, even smaller is the people at the time that had the prescience to think, okay, I'm going to keep this because Marina Abramovic is important.
Bingo. Yeah.
Like that's another filter. And that's why a lot of this material is very scarce. And, that's why you can command, I don't know, like anywhere up to like a couple $1,000s for a postcard.
Right.
Is because like there just isn't, in some cases it's important to the artist's career. It's an important performance and there's none available.
Yeah.
Or very few.
Is there anything that you acquired at one point where it just appreciated astronomically and you're like, oh man, now I just like have to sell this? Or are there things that like you've chosen to sit on where you feel like you got it for a lower price and all of a sudden, like you bought a Judd chair 25 years ago?
Not like that, but like I was pretty early on Judd material. Yeah. Like he's always been my favorite artist. So like I was pretty early on getting a lot of Judd posters and books.
Mm-hmm.
Some of which, is not for sale. Some of which, like the one I mentioned, sold. But the reason I sold that is because I just looked at the market value of it and it was many times over what I initially paid for it, which at the time was fair market value. So I think like Donald Judd, I definitely was, I noticed a jump in value on his work. Nothing that I've like sat on really, because I like to keep things moving. I like to find those like little small things where I'm like just a bit onto something that like everybody isn't necessarily onto, or I'm like a bit early on something. Like for me right now, like I really like to keep things lean and keep things moving.
I mean, that's a mark of a true merchant too. It's like, look, you're not looking for a crazy return. You're looking for a fair margin that enables you to continue, acquiring and selling versus like air quote, like investment pieces.
Yeah. And I think there's definitely like investment. That's a part of it for sure with people. Like I've, sold art to people and they've asked me straight up, like, do you think this is a good investment? And I'll say, yes, I do. And here's why. Or I will politely steer the conversation elsewhere.
Yeah. You're like, oh, it's going to a free port. Oh no.
Yeah. But like, I think like all of this stuff is, I don't want to say all of this stuff is an investment, but there's a finite amount of it. My gut tells me that there is going to be a continued increasing of demand for paper, specifically paper related to art and culture.
Mm-hmm.
So like that's kind of my perspective on it. Like whether or not whether or not that makes a good investment for you, that's kind of up to you. I don't treat it that way for myself. Like I keep things moving along pretty rapidly. Like I don't have much stuff either. Like I'm keep on looking over into my like little library area and it's like it's not that big. Like I don't have a lot of stuff.
What?
Yeah, people always think I have like this big massive library of all of these amazing things, but it's like, yeah, it's just like an IKEA shop.
Do you just kind of live out the big library thing for the clients you work with then? Because I mean, you have stocked people's stores and it's not like you sent them 2 books.
That's a good point. Yeah. I mean, a lot of it's like in stores. But like I keep it moving. Like I have stuff right now in J. Crew, Colbo, Noah. I think that's it. Right now we're taking a break at Ben Space.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like I don't know. Like I really like moving units, and I think it's like a financial imperative for me too. Because like I can't afford to sit on all this stuff.
Right.
Like I can't sit on like an entire bookcase full of like expensive books.
Yeah.
And it's expensive. Like, I'm always trying to push my price point just because I think it's more interesting to do. Like I just like to kind of expand what I deal in. And it's like so much easier to sell a $60 book than it is to sell like an $800 book.
Well, this has been great. This has been wonderful. I mean, before we wrap or anything, is there anything you want to add or mention or plug that we didn't get to talk about?
The book fair I co-organize, Available Works, is coming up in May. So I think, if you're in New York, visit all of these stores for their amazing curation, books aside. And
By you?
No. Just like in general, like the only, like, so if we going back to the book, like, so how I got into those bookstores is I was just a fan of Noah and I was a fan of Colbo. And what had happened is I asked my friend Gerald, who works at GQ, to introduce me to the people at Colbo because I wanted to like do something with them. So I was just a fan. He made the introduction and I pitched them on saying, hey, why don't we do a show of Raymond Pettibone flyers? He did the Black Flag logo and did all of Black Flag's stuff. And I had a very large collection acquired from a dealer who had acquired them from a gentleman who passed away that did PR for SST Records.
Oh my God.
I know. I paid up, but they're so good. So we did a show of Raymond Pettibone drawings in the back of Colbo. And then I also had some books in there. So like I actively sought them out. And then with Noah, I'd been a fan of Noah and I would go into that store. I'd be like, I'm kind of competitive. So I'd be like, who the fuck is doing these books? Like, these are good books, but like, I can probably do it better. Like, I want to know how does this work? Like, how do these books end up here? How does this work? Because I think I might be able to like do it better. So I ended up asking around and I asked Chris and Chris put me in touch with Jason, the store manager. And we had a great little conversation. And I just kind of, I just show up with a bag of books. Like, it's very unsophisticated. Like I'll just show up with a bag of books, I'll put them on the shelf, I'll update my little spreadsheet and off I go. And then through Noah, that's how I ended up working in a much more formalized way with J. Crew on their books and things like that. So and then with Venn Space, that was just a recommendation from a mutual friend.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, because these are the things too where a friend of mine is a vintage dealer and most of his stuff he'll sell he sells clothes. And he's like, yeah, I mean, basically most of my income is from these other things. And you're like, oh, I figured it would be because you have a partnership with A or B or this company. And he's like, no, you do that to get the other jobs. Yeah. Like, have you found that the same for yourself? Where it's like, I mean, or is that stuff there just like on consignment or what is that? Or are they giving you a nice upfront fee and then you can kind of keep going?
For me, it's fun for me to see my books out in the wild. Like, just like I think with any creative person, it's like I'd much prefer my stuff be out in the world rather than like at home in a stack somewhere. So that's definitely part of it. I'm a brand strategist, so part of it for me is also like brand alignment with their brand with my brand. like that to me is a very clear benefit, and maybe a bit vice versa. I hope they benefit from that. But it's not financial. Like, I mean, there's a really funny story where this one guy came into Colbo and bought a Warhol soup can off the wall. He negotiated for $50 and we cut a deal and he just bought it and walked out with it. It was great. And that was like a really good sale, but that was like a bit of an anomaly. So like, I guess all of that is to say is like, you'll be surprised at the size of purchases people make in New York. I certainly was. But it's not like my main source of revenue. For me, it's fun. It's brand alignment. It gets me out of the house. I get to go visit, these shops that I enjoy visiting anyways.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, well, I do agree with you on the sense of the surprise and shopping that you see from New Yorkers, where it's like, yeah, I remember there was a couple things when I worked at the Armory. We had helped open it. There was some stuff in there that was really high end and expensive. And in my head, I'm like, surely no one would ever come in here and buy this. And sure enough, someone comes in and throws down. And you're like, what?
Yeah.
What do you do? And they're like, oh yeah, this is going to here. And you're just like, wow, there's a lot of money out there. There is a lot of money out there. Who would have thought?
It still feels very abstract to me.
Yeah.
That this money is floating around. But that one time that guy just walked in off the street, he was from LA and he just, spent a lot of money on a soup can draw, which was fairly priced. Like I always price my stuff. Like I try to be the cheapest option or like around the cheapest option. But I was like, who's walking around just ready to make a $6,000 purchase just cause? But I guess a lot of people.
Yeah. Geoff, this has been an absolute pleasure.
This was fun, man. Thank you so much, Jeremy. I had a great time. Thanks for chatting with me.
Thank you again. It was a pleasure having you on, and we'll talk soon. You've been listening to Blamo. Our show is produced by Blamo Media. We're edited by Amar Lowell, and our theme music, as always, by the mysterious Breakmaster Cylinder. If you like what you heard, you know the drill. Share the pod with a friend. Leave a review on Apple Podcasts. Give us 5 stars or thumbs up on whatever other thing you're listening to us on, whether it's Dingledorp or Bing Bong, whatever it's called. But you can also follow us on Instagram for all the hot content. If you want to talk to us and give us your hot take, we'd love to hear from you. You can send us an email at info@blamopod.com. Last but not least, super ultra important. If I had a air horn, I would press it right now. You got to come and join us over on Patreon, because the fun never stops over there. Look, the live show, the free show, whatever you want to call this, we take breaks here and there, but Patreon, it never stops. And we also got exclusive shows like Die Workwear, hosted by Derek Guy and Peter Zotolo, and the Triple J Show, hosted by yours truly with John Moy and Gene DeLeon. There's just a ton of stuff over there. So check it out at patreon.com/Blamo. If not, no worries. We got hundreds and hundreds of free episodes in the feed, and more to come. So we will see you all soon.